8:01 a.m. Let's take a look at our agenda for Tuesday. The consent agenda. Anyone have any questions about the consent agenda?
I guess just what's the reasoning for the grant time, the extending of the grant time on number 10?
Extending grant duration and updating the program description. Normally, any of these are always on the other side, but Ben, you can speak to it. You'll see a lot of these with these grants extensions. They'll come through a lot.
So the Board of Commerce reached out to us, they asked to, they reviewed the agreement and they asked to make two changes, I guess two changes to this agreement. Number one, to extend the time frame of the agreement, and number two, to change a little bit the description of the grant, of the scope of work. We had some, when we submitted the application, we included $200,000 as a budget item for storefront improvements. And whenever Florida Commerce awarded this grant to the city, they gave us the award without the storefront assistance. So we asked for $4.5 million, we got 4.3. And so they found some wording in the agreement that says that this could be still, it's basically a housekeeping item. They found some wording about storefront agreement and they asked to take this out. If we make a change to the agreement like this, we have to amend it. That's the reason why we wanted to do this.
Okay, perfect.
Any other questions about the consent agenda?
I had a question about the warrant list.
All right.
Intergreen something, 236,000.
Yeah.
What is that?
That is the new bush axe that we purchased. We purchased one last year, and then we purchased a smaller one this year, and it's the new bush axe that we use.
Is that the thing that has an arm that?
And the mower, and yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. JDF something something, 4.3 million.
That's the payoff that you all approved.
Okay. The payoff to,
Mr. Finch.
got it. Okay.
Yeah, so when we approved the paying off the 17th Street ditch loan
Yeah.
last time,
Yeah.
that was for that.
Okay. I remember that. I just didn't understand the abbreviations there. Okay, how about CW Roberts? Is that this building? 703?
That is paving.
That's what?
Legislative paving.
That's all reimbursable, every bit of it.
Okay. Okay. Have we seen a significant difference in our payments to Florida Power and Light? Just out of curiosity. You know, we pay has it been pretty consistent?
It's been really consistent. It may go down a little bit. That's from having a meeting
Isn't it going up
for you guys, but
for residential?
yeah.
I thought the school board was in Jackson County.
Jackson
was
County.
yelling about it. Yes.
Okay, that's all the questions I had on the warrant list.
All right. One thing I would ask that we consider adding to the consent agenda, I know last meeting there was some discussion around city manager's contract regarding overtime pay. We're going to bring that back probably in February to continue discussing that. However, last year via email, we did affirm to pay her for the MLK Day in regards to overtime. However, we didn't do that, I guess, in a formal sense. And so we just ask us to consider adding to the consent agenda, just ratifying that decision that we made. Although it's sort of retroactive, that will sort of ratify that. Then that'll be on public record that we've done that. So just would like to add that to the consent agenda.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I'd rather have it on the regular agenda, that's me.
But So I understand, but we've already done that. So she's already been paid. We've already made the decision to do it.
I got it.
Well, you can still pull it out and discuss it.
So help me understand the reasoning for adding it to the regular agenda.
I think there's some discussion that needs to go on about that.
Well, go ahead and discuss.
Well, I mean, when you read her contract, it goes against what her contract says.
Correct.
I think the whole thing.
Well, I disagree on that, but that's part of the problem we're trying to address.
I'm talking her current contract.
Her current contract does not entitle her to work on, it does not have any expectation that she work on holidays. So if she does work on holidays, there is an opportunity for her to be paid. Working on holidays, there's no expectation. So I think that was addressed. To me, that is a clear opportunity for her to obtain extra compensation under her contract if approved by the commission. It was approved by the commission, although not in a formal meeting. So ratifying that prior decision corrects what was already done. You still have a conversation that you need to have about how you want her contract to read going forward. Will holiday work be included in her expectation of work or excluded?
So I think it really put the commission in an awkward position the way it was handled. I would like to have a formal vote on it, I guess is what I'm getting at.
So a formal vote on us to approve what we've already done.
Well,
I'm just
wasn't
asking.
done correctly, but yes.
So, okay. All right, if y'all add that to the agenda. Doesn't make sense to me, but okay.
Well, I mean, okay, so let's say you put it on the consent agenda and I disagree with it. Do I just say no on the consent agenda? You
Good.
know? Good,
Or in the meeting, you can ask to pull it separate for discussion.
I could.
Isn't that correct?
Yeah, or we can just put it on the agenda. I guess it's 8:09. I guess my mind isn't just clicking right now that we're voting to discuss, we're discussing something that we've already approved,
I didn't prove it.
but you're one out of the majority.
Right.
And what happens is, because you don't approve something and the majority does, you feel as if we should follow your lead when the majority has already
No, I
approved
just think it
something.
deserves a vote. That's all I said.
It gets a vote on, if it's on the consent agenda, that's a vote.
Okay, then put it on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Well, is this going to be an issue soon? I mean, Martin Luther King is just a couple of weeks
Well,
away.
we're not voting on, this is not for upcoming Martin Luther King.
I know, but
This is for something, this is for last year's Martin Luther King.
yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying that in 2 weeks, it's going to be an issue again.
So your options are going, or you have two options. You can bring it back to the commission for a vote every year with regard to what compensation she should be entitled to or not on any holiday she works. So that can come back every time, or you can revise her contract to expressly say that she is entitled to extra compensation for hours worked on holidays. There are two ways to address it.
Mayor, can I just say,
Yeah.
I don't want any holidays, okay? I don't, and that's off that entire thing. I'll just work whenever I need to work. I always do. I've never missed an event. I've never missed a holiday. As you know, I've never missed a commission meeting. So that was an end to.
Well, may I say something? You know, she's asking people to work on a holiday. She's asking other people to work on the holiday. So she feels, and I might be speaking out of turn for you, that as the leader of the group, she needs to also work on that holiday to show the people, or the citizens, or the employees that you know, she's not asking them to do something that she's not willing to do.
Right.
And yes, she's on a salary, but I mean, what's wrong with saying, "Atta girl, you know, you didn't have to do this. And because you've done it, you know, we want to do this for you." Being in a leadership role, I didn't want to ask any of my employees to do something I wasn't willing to do myself. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Number 11, discussion of possible approval of resolution 2025-01-448 for the FDOT transportation alternative grant application. Are there any questions about that for Mr. Jenke?
About how long we're just putting in a grant for it, and then a grant request, and then it'll be, if it's granted, then we can start with the project. Pretty much, pretty
Yes,
standard.
if the application is approved, obviously it's a competitive process.
Right.
The grant application deadline is January the 17th. Part of the application requires a signed resolution by the city commission that supports this grant application, including some support letters from the community, which I have attached to the agenda packet. So we'll see what happens.
All right, cool. Thank you. I will say this, I live in that area and I've canvassed a lot of people there. And I've lived around that area for over 30 years, and I've never seen traffic around school time like it is now.
It is.
So like, I don't know if it's the change in the school bus system or just a shift in our, shift in how we do things as a civilization. I don't know. But when I was a kid, there was no vehicles there. So there really wasn't a need for sidewalks. But now, around when vehicles pick up their kids, it's lined up for blocks. And I've seen multiple times where kids have almost been hit by cars because they're just coming in and out of the cars, and you know. And then on top of that, you've got wear and tear to that area, like the streets. Like the streets, Carolina Avenue's been repaved and it already has damage to it because of all the cars parking and stuff. So I think if we can get this grant, it's not only going to be, obviously it will be help with safety, but it also will help with our streets not being torn up.
And you will see more of these grants and opportunities to put in sidewalks to encourage kids to walk on the sidewalks. And I will tell you, our folks that crossing guards do a very good job of ushering them to the sidewalks that we have right now. Part of the problem too, what we're seeing is, I think it was 2 years ago, the school board decided they would expand the area in which the bus would, or decrease the area in which the bus would pick up. So now, I think it used to be a mile, now it's 2 miles. So some of those kids have to either walk or parents drop them off. So that's where you're seeing the increase. Is that correct?
Any other questions on that? Moving on to 12, which will be the first reading of ordinance 1173. This is in regards to the firefighters' retirement system. City Attorney.
So this is a recommendation that comes from your firefighter and police pension. These two items, 11 and 12, do the same thing. Just they are separated because one addresses fire, one addresses police. But the change is to clarify that if you are not 100% vested at the time of separation, you will forfeit your accrued benefits in the share plan. And then stating it in the alternative as well, if at the time of separation you are 100% vested, you are entitled to all of those funds.
All right. Any further questions on that?
So for employees that are not fire department or police department, they only need 5 years to be vested?
5 years at 50%, 6 years at 60%.
Right, it goes prorates. Is that the same for this then? at 5
This
years?
is a different part of, it's called a shared plan. So
Okay.
it costs the city nothing,
Okay,
okay? Our 5, 6, 7, that is what the city does, but this is separate from what the city does. This right here will cost us nothing.
okay. So firefighter and police still got the 5-year vested at 50%?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Number 13, we're seeing the same there. Any
What?
difference there? Oh,
Yeah, what prompted this? Again, did the pension committee recommend it? Is there a pension?
They did, I would defer to Jennifer on the why, but yes, it was recommended, considered and recommended by these two pension committees back in March.
And the belief is both firefighter and police pensions have an additional plan called the shared plan that's provided by the state based on insurance rates for the city that doesn't impact the general. When the three pensions and when the city wanted the pensions to look at a graduated vesting, these two pensions just wanted to clarify the shared plan, which is separate, didn't fall under that graduated approach, that they would be vested at 50%. That the shared plan, because it's actually controlled and dictated from the state, is a different plan altogether.
So if you had 9 years and you leave, you get nothing.
With fire and police, you still get 90% of the first pension, the pension that the city contributes to,
Okay,
but you would lose your shared
shared
plan payout.
got it.
Who covers the share plan?
State.
State.
Okay.
Number 14, this will be the first reading of ordinance 1175 for small scale future land use map amendment from changing traditional neighborhood development to commercial. Are there any questions for that for Amanda?
Yeah, are there any houses around? I looked at that map. Are there any houses close by that area?
There's some, when you're looking at the map, there are some that are kind of to the left on the water that are in the county. There's a few lots there. I think there might be a few down that road that's on the right on larger lots, but not immediately surrounding it.
So that won't affect, because I know the one concern with Mill Bayou is only having so many
Units.
ingress and egress.
Oh, egress?
This wouldn't affect that at all.
No, they would come out directly onto 2321. And one of the things that I want to stress also is that it is TND right now, traditional neighborhood development. So you're right, in ordinarily when there's a land use map amendment application, we have to look at the land uses of adjacent areas, which is why I always put it in the car for you. Although the adjacent properties are, I think it's agriculture, timberland in the county, and then you've got the road and you've got a residential land use in the county. Under TND, the current land use, they can have commercial. They have a mix of commercial, low density, high density. In a traditional neighborhood development, there is supposed to be some commercial in there. And this is probably where they would put, this is where it makes sense to have some, they would probably have some integral if it were a proper TND, like little village clusters, you know, but it makes perfect sense to have commercial on that road. Now, something to think about, remember with the Grease Pro, there was commercial on the road on Highway 390, which was widening, and there was residential before. In that situation, I'm not sure what came first, the chicken or the egg. I think the residential was there before that became commercial. In this instance, this would be you voting for commercial on that road prior to any residential being built there. And what would make sense would be really for all of the property along the road to be commercial, and then to have like mixed use behind it, maybe apartments or townhomes, and then behind that you would have your single family.
This is 9 acres.
Yeah, almost 10
9.9.
acres, 9.9.
Okay.
Yeah.
9.99.
Yes. 9.99999.
Yeah. First reading and transmittal approval of ordinance 1176, large scale comprehensive plan text amendment, evaluation and appraisal report.
Yes, thank you. So if you recall, you all wanted to make some changes to the comp plan, but I requested that you let us make the changes because we had to send to the state to notify them. We have to do it every 7 years. This is something we have to do. And so I requested that you allow us to make the statutory changes first and also clean up any like obvious things. And so this has been done. Ordinarily, when it's a first reading of an ordinance, it's first reading by title only. But in this instance, because we have to send it to the state, it's a public hearing. I'm asking for first reading by title only, but then also a vote to transmit to the state. When we send it to them, then they have 30 days, and the other reviewing, all the other state agencies have 30 days to get comments to the state, and then the state will notify us as to whether what we've done is sufficient. If it isn't, if there's something they want in there or change, they will tell us what that is in what's called an ORC report, objections, recommendations, and comments, and then we have 180 days to fix those things and send it back and adopt it. Thank you.
So if there were some grammar issues, you could fix that later?
They don't normally worry about grammar issues. They don't care. They're looking at content, substance, policies, what we're going to do. I mean, if there's any bad language in there as far as grammar, that's not something they look at. But you could certainly clean that up when it comes to your bit, when you're looking at the changes that you want to make.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really
I mean, I
the-
say that. They may come back and say, hey, this sentence doesn't make sense. I want you to change the grammar in it. I don't know.
So,
Well,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's just a couple of places, it was just one giant run-on paragraph. I mean, it was one sentence, you know.
Yeah. I don't think that we'll see. But they're not going to stop it because of that. It's the
Okay.
content. They just want to make sure the policies are correct.
And there are a few places I noticed that need commas, so I won't.
In
okay.
the
I
title,
won't worry about
in the
it.
title or in the actual comp plan?
In the comp plan.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of things like that in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I
No,
won't worry about that.
Rules of grammar have changed now. Yeah. So APA does this differently than MLA does that. So what used to be commas isn't commas anymore. And if you see the way the kids right now, it's just crazy.
Yeah, Mayor, I found that because I was wondering about the title when I did the title, and I thought, surely I need to is this okay? But I checked with the grammar thing, and yeah, it was fine. So,
It's confusing now.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So most of the changes, a majority of the changes is changes to satisfy the state. Is that
these
what-
are things that you'll notice that peril of flood information. I've also cleaned some things up, like I changed something that said, I don't know, handicap to special needs. I mean, we've updated where some of the old ordinance references were in there. We've cleaned it up when it comes to that kind of thing, and hopefully we've made sure that the statutory, the things that they require of us to have in there are in there.
Like I saw the section like about climate change and that.
Yeah, that
stuff from the state,
yeah,
that one.
yeah.
The only other question I have is, when this is done and it comes back, are we gonna review the comp plan as a commission? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just the first, we send it to them, they get their objections to us. It's up to you, I can either come back to you with the objections, they'll probably send a letter to you, Mayor, with them as well. They usually send it to you and also to me. I mean, I don't know, it's up to you how you want to handle it, whether you want me to just go ahead and make the changes that they require, or if you want to make the commission aware of the changes before I make them. Yeah.
But yeah, we will discuss strategically, progressively discussing the comp plan then, because what the staff had asked was that if we start discussing it now, some of the things we're going to change would have probably been something that she needed to change. So now that we see what we're working
We need to
with,
make sure we're good with the state first before we press on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll need to adopt this first with their changes, get that done and out of the way, and then, you've got another 7 years. You can make whatever changes you want within that time.
So simultaneously, we want to discuss the comp plan as well as discuss some of our ULDC, going along with that. I know zoning was one of the things we discussed prior to the new year, but with us having like 1 month meetings in November, December, we want to wait until the new year before we really brought that back. So we could have a few successive meetings to have some more discussion about that as well, because zoning or not zoning sort of determines what the rest of the UODC, looks like as well. So, and then also starting that next meeting, we're going to bring back our big black book of ordinances and start going back through that as well. So lots of work for us to do as we move into 2025.
I just have one more question. Okay. I noticed that throughout there were a lot of little bitty changes, but when you get to the water management section, there's a whole bunch of changes. Did I
Are you talking
mislook
about
at that?
the schedule of improvements or which section?
Is that like?
Goes like Northwest Florida
Oh,
water.
yeah, that was,
It's already done by
that was,
elevation.
do you remember how we had a grant for a vulnerability assessment?
Yes.
So as part of that vulnerability assessment, they did the required statutory changes and language for peril of flood. That's something that we had to do. Those consultants did that. So all of that is from the consultants. Yeah, sorry.
Thanks.
And now moving on to some further discussion. And please note for 16 and 17, for right now, this is just for discussion. With approval coming maybe next meeting, but we want to discuss this with the intention of giving the staff direction on what we would like for them to bring back to us as relates to like an ordinance. So 16 and 17 will be for discussion again, so that we can say, hey, this is what we would like, like for you all to work on, or maybe some more research on this so we can get more clarification on that. Did you have something, Commissioner Vinegar? Okay, I just saw your fingers, son. Discussion only pertaining to defining what constitutes an accessory structure per section 5.01.2, accessory structures in all land use districts. And this is something, both of these are some things that city manager emailed us about last year, or the latter part of last year. I can't remember the exact month, but in those last few months, she emailed about this and thought it would be a good time for us to bring this back so that we could actually get on the agenda and discuss it and see what our ideas are on it. So, city manager?
Yeah, so when we go out and people call us about certain things, particularly accessory structures, we have a problem sometimes identifying what we consider as an accessory structure, and whether or not we should take action or not. So I think clarification needs to be done on that, and then where that accessory structure is going to land on that person's property. Those are probably, if I would to say, are two of the major issues when it comes to accessory structures. Because, some people don't like accessory structure sitting right in neighbors in the front of their house, or on the side, or on the driveway. And so we just need some direction so we can clarify this. This is really some clarity that needs to come from this. I know Amanda gets a lot of questions from this, and so do the building department. So we just need clarity.
If I remember right, I think a lot of this stemmed from, since the hurricane, a lot of people getting those pods and stuff. I don't know what you want to call those, metal containers. I think that's where we're going with this.
Well, that's the thing. Do you consider that an accessory structure
Yeah.
or not? If somebody goes and buys a shed, that we kind of know that's one, but they just need to be, all of those things need to be identified.
Do you have any, I guess, initial thoughts, initial questions that we can ask? Probably take us over the weekend and mull over all of this. But any initial thoughts or questions that we can ask staff before we discuss it again on Tuesday?
On just 16 or both 16 and 17?
Just 16 right now.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're,
Yeah, separate.
yeah.
I would ask that, Amanda, you can come and give any conversations you've had in terms of trying to interpret this or things, and share with the commission, if you will.
Now?
Yeah, you can.
So I think the main one that's been an issue recently is the one that I told you all about a couple of months ago, which is where we've had more than one person want to put containers, storage containers like you are shipped in, those huge things, in their backyard and call them an accessory structure. To store things in. And I know in the county, you see them and they're fine. And I know construction companies use them now as well. But do you really want them, on Indiana Avenue in someone's backyard? So that's one of the things. And again, all these little pods. We see people put things in the front yard. We tell them accessory structures can only be in the backyard. But I mean, are they even an accessory structure? Are they appropriate? I mean, I can see maybe writing some kind of language whereby if someone's moving house or something and they need to have them to fill up, to move, you can allow them to be there for, a week or something. But if we don't have anything that addresses, I think it's like anything, when technology changes and different forms of things, like back in the day, an accessory structure would have been a shed, a gazebo, a pool. But now people have all these new ideas of things they want to do. And so I think we just need more guidance as to what you will want to allow and what you don't.
And then how long?
Yes.
If it is for a reason, then give us some guidance on how long you would say this would stay here if someone
They're not
is-
supposed to be in the front yard at all. Accessory structures are supposed to be in the side and the rear. But is a pod a structure? Not
Does
really.
Does it address having it in the front temporarily?
No, they're not supposed to have anything in the front,
That's
period.
probably something we need to
Yeah.
add as a timeline as far as how long you can have it in the front and for what,
I think the two things that come to mind for me are how are we going to track how long it's been there? Because if it's just on the honor system, what's the point of having it anyways? If
Usually the neighbor is going to complain about it.
well, yeah.
So that's
So would it be from the first complaint that we would track it? I mean, that seems like the easiest way.
Yeah, it's kind of like parking, it's like there's only 2 hour parking here. And it's like, how do you know how long? So when the parking attendant comes, they're like, okay, I'm going to annotate this time. It'll be 2 hours from here.
Right.
So that's probably the same thing with this, I would think.
Yeah, maybe it'd just be as simple as a neighbor calls, and then it would just be like a kind reminder. Hey, just a reminder. You got however many days.
And code enforcement will catch some of those
Yeah.
as well. We probably just gather that information and
Right.
then be able to keep that information as a log and that timeline of when
Right.
we need to go back to that person as a reminder. You're exactly right.
And then for the permanent accessory structures, one thing we could require is that they need to be anchored down, because that's one of the issues with accessory structures. Is one of the main things is really just that they can fly from one yard to the other and destroy somebody else's stuff. So being anchored down would be key. If it truly is permanent, like you're saying it is, then you're going to anchor it down. If not, then it's not an accessory structure. It's temporary.
And what kind of things do you want to be permanent and what don't you want to be permanent?
Right. Well, to me, I know that some things are ugly, but I don't feel like I have the right to tell another neighbor what's ugly and what's not, because it's their property. So even if they wanted a storage container, as long as it's not affecting somebody else, then that's their own prerogative. But when it gets to the point that it is affecting someone else negatively, and then to me, the hard part is what's the gray line of like, this is affecting someone's property value versus, so it's a conversation. I have to do some research, but really the main thing that sticks out to me is they need to be anchored down if they're permanent.
All right, any additional questions for Amanda at this moment? Like I said, we'll bring it back Tuesday and have some further discussion then. All right, moving on to number 17, discussion pertaining to specific parking requirements for recreational vehicles. City manager?
Same goes here. I know all of you receive phone calls about when code enforcement goes out and ask someone to move their RV to the back. It can't be parked here. They have to put it somewhere else. Code enforcement did a great job through PD of going out and locating every recreational vehicle that's sitting in a driveway, and it was about 300, am I correct, Chief?
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so we, again, we need direction on how you want us to address and handle this more than anything. Because of the fact that it is becoming, code enforcement is spending a lot of their time. And Chief, you can come up and tune in about the challenges code enforcement are having.
I mean, this was a hot button item in Panama City, and theirs was written almost identical to ours. And I mean, it's in their driveway. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, pre-hurricane, I don't think we had near as many. Post-hurricane, we have over 300 in violation right now. It's very specific. The language says it has to be behind the residence. And I can assure you, you know, I think Panama City, we need to really look at what they did, because if I were to go out and cite the 300 right now, this chamber couldn't hold the people that would show up. So we need to do the next right thing, and let's look at maybe what Panama City did to satisfy and have a line where we can either say on the side or even in the driveway. But I mean, again, the key word is their driveway. And I mean, are we going to infringe on their liberty of what they can have in the driveway? And you know, if a HOA wants to address that in their own area, then let the HOA. But I just think right now, if we were to enforce it the way it sits, again, I don't think this chamber's big enough to hold the people that would come out.
I think one of the challenges also for people who do not have them, they are in driveways, is the very large ones that they cannot, you know, neighbor can't see over, can't see around. It impedes them with their level of feeling safe. And you also got the email for the ones that are in driveways that, yes, have tags, but maybe haven't moved in 2 years or a year. So you've
Consider
got
like a
to address
derelict
those as
type
well.
RV.
Because, you know, if they haven't moved, but it's not bothering anyone, we kind of, hands are kind of, tied at that sense. So you see them
Yeah.
in all of those.
Chief, do you recall, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Do you recall off the top of your head what Panama City did to address it?
No, but I'm sure Amy can get with her attorney, because
Okay.
Panama City did draft one that met in the middle with the residents that they seemed to be pleased with. So I think, you know, why reinvent the wheel? Let's look
Right.
at what they did.
But I do agree with the resident that, you know, ones that are derelict, been there a while, they have a tag, but, you know, flat tires, those kinds of things, we need to address that. I mean, we need some direction. What do we
Yes.
do with those?
But now, would that not be covered under, like, we have an ordinance that addresses
but-
the vehicles?
Per the way you read the language on a recreational vehicle opposes to a vehicle, the language needs to be specific to a recreational vehicle. I mean, do I say we mirror what we're doing with vehicles? Absolutely. You know, with the tag, the valid tag and things of that nature. And, you know, and the flat tires or something that would make it what we would refer to as a derelict
That's right.
vehicle. But again, I think we really need to pay close attention to what we're doing on their private property.
Okay. Amy or CJ or someone, could you all, I guess before Tuesday, try to send us over the ordinance or the resolution that Panama City approved, so we can read over that to see the language of that?
I'm looking for it right now, so I'll send it as soon as I find it.
Okay,
That would help a lot.
all right, thank you. All right, anything else for further discussion before we go?
Oh, yeah, I got something. So, I've been talking to some people over in Panama City, and I thought it just brought an idea that I thought was kind of neat, is that I hadn't considered this in the past. You know, we have an election coming up, and we've had times in the past where we wanted to poll the citizens, but it costs money. So during an election, you can have a question on the ballot that's non-binding. So you could poll the citizens and get, it's a free chance to do any type of poll you want to do. So obviously you wouldn't want to do something simple like, hey, would you want this? Because it could sound a lot better than it is. So for an example, if you were to say like, hey, do you want a library? Obviously there's going to be a lot of yeses, but if you were to add, hey, do you want a library? But you also would have to raise your property taxes to get it. The answers might be different. So we'd have to figure out exactly what it is. But I guess my request is that maybe among us think about certain things that you'd like to see on the ballot, because we can do this for free essentially because there's already going to be an election. So it's a way that we can not only poll the citizens for free, but also hopefully it'll encourage civic engagement. So
Now, is it,
No, it's not free.
is it free to put something on the ballot to
that
ask
actually,
questions?
okay, that's a good question. I just made an assumption.
No, no.
It's not.
During an election, it normally costs us about $10,000. I think that's what I have budgeted right now.
Per question or the
No,
election
the
itself?
entire election, and then I have to check with Tina if something's added, because right now,
Yeah.
we've already gone through, yes, these two seats are going to be open. No, at this point, we don't have any charter changes that had to be done at I think, the
Like
end
we
of
did
this
the
year.
charter referendum. Do we have any
Yeah,
idea how
we had
much
to do
that
all
would
of that
charge?
stuff. I don't remember.
That would probably be a good one to look at.
I'll look at it
Yeah.
and see. I
Well,
sure will.
yeah, when in all obviously, like let's say hypothetically, the two seats. Let's just say hypothetically, the two seats the incumbents don't have people run against them, and then they decide to keep the seat, and there's not an election. Obviously, we wouldn't want to spend
Right.
10 grand to ask the questions. But if there is an election, we might as well research and see how much it's going to cost to poll the citizens on things that are important to us. If it's super cheap. Obviously, I wouldn't want to spend thousands of dollars to ask a question. But if it's, since we're already paying the 10 grand for the election, might as well get our money's worth.
Have you seen this in other municipalities?
Yeah, Panama City does it.
Really?
I'll talk to Brian Granger. I talk to him time to time.
We
guess
would want a limit of questions.
Yeah, of
what
course. We don't
ask.
want voter fatigue. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe just limit it to, 2 or 3 or even
okay.
one. Yeah, not like a 12 question thing, but just like a, something that maybe we've talked about in the past that we wanted. Because I remember a few months ago, we were talking about potentially doing a survey.
Right.
And
I guess the difference would be the survey would actually, I guess, go out to all of our residents. Whereas, I'm not saying not to do this survey on the ballot, but we would probably hit about 3,000 residents, or voters, per
Right.
se.
I would say psychologically, going to vote, you're going to get more responses anyway than just a random survey you got on your water bill. Because people feel empowered when they vote versus, okay, I guess I'll do this survey on the water.
I wonder if that drive more people to go out and vote.
Right.
I would hope, but I mean,
That's kind of the goal you want to, because, yeah, I'd like to see more than 3,000 or whatever we got last time. It's just
I
nice to
will
have some
definitely
engagement.
research that and get
Well,
that
it'd be a
information.
sampling.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so yeah, if you were to get an answer back and it's like 52% yes over only 3,000 votes, you could be like, yeah, maybe this isn't a good consensus. But if you got like a 80% out of 3,000 votes, that kind of trend analysis shows me that's probably what the citizens want.
Amy, would we have to do anything, pass any ordinances? I know before when you wanted to put additional stuff on there, you had to pass ordinances. And is there a deadline for that? I think we would have to check on those.
So, yes, there is. You have to adopt a resolution setting the ballot language, the language of that question, by the last day of qualifying. So whatever the deadline is for qualifying, it's noon on a Friday, roughly 5 or 6 weeks before the election. That is your same deadline to create and pass a resolution setting that ballot language.
I think what if qualifying is the 12th?
Of February. So we'd have to do it. We'd have to have the questions done by the following meeting, not this meeting, but the following meeting, right?
The first meeting.
Or do we have a meeting?
We don't,
The first
do it the
meeting in
first
February.
Ordinance is just, that's two.
Let me pull up
votes
my
on that.
calendar.
And Amy, that's a resolution, not an ordinance.
That's correct.
Okay, so
They just require one reading.
one reading.
yeah.
If we do that.
If qualifying is on the 12th, then we would have our February commission meeting before that. So we would have 2 more meetings after this one to get it figured out.
Anything else before we go?
Well, if we're going to do something like that, we need to be thinking as a group as to what would be your top 2 questions,
Right.
so that the next time this is discussed, we'll be prepared to say, okay, these are my 2, and these are your 2, and, you know, like that.
So I guess by Tuesday, if you could find out how much would it cost for us to add something to the ballot, in regards to a polling question. How much it would cost us, because it would, as Commissioner Ward referenced, I think it would just be like a referendum question, because we're asking people, because they're still having to calculate the yes or no, no matter how it's
Right.
languaged.
Yeah, true.
It's still a yes or no, so it'd probably be that same, that same instance. And then, once we know that, then we can make a decision if that's something we want to move forward with. Then from there, think over our questions, and probably by that next meeting in January, have those 2 questions. Be able to, 2 questions per commissioner. If a commissioner wants to consider questions being contemplated, and then add that, talk over that in the next January meeting. So,
Will you have put a limit on how many questions you want to put on the ballot as well?
so just
2, right?
yeah, do
Okay.
those 2.
Just
So what we need to know is what 2.
Got it.
Yeah, she's asking for us to have 2 questions, and then we can divulge over which 2 do we want to
Okay.
put on.
Because that's what I'll speak with them about. It will be 2 questions, so they'll
Yeah.
know. Okay.
Great. Anything of you, Commissioner Parnell?
Yes, we, at our last meeting in December, we had 2 agenda items, that were addressing the water treatment plant. And I know one of them was to pause the plant expansion, because the prior agenda item was to work with Bay County to obtain an estimated feasibility study. And I know that y'all went, and, we're going for legislative appropriation. But, I mean, if we don't get legislative appropriation, do we have a plan in place? Are we continuing with the meetings with Bay County? And
We have a meeting that CJ is working out with Bay County, hopefully next week.
Good,
It's
great.
trying to bring everyone
And
together.
Bay County deals with a company that does the rate studies as well.
Brett
So-
Ellis.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so we can still work toward getting a
Yeah.
price and, doing it ourselves if we don't get appropriation. Because I just want to make sure we don't sit back and wait for appropriation and then go back to Bay
Yeah,
County.
and I will tell you, it's looking very promising.
Oh, yeah.
For that. One of the things that
Has the
Chris and I talked about is with that request, and Mayor can update you when talk to Representative Gribb, is getting a letter of support from the estuary when we submit our appropriation.
We have their support.
Well, we just need a letter of support.
Yeah.
And then from
And
Elizabeth
I'm-
Orr
and I'm
with
sure they're
DEP.
listening. Did everybody get the email and the newsletter on the estuary program that they put out? St. Joe Basin and Bay. She put out 2, so, okay.
Yeah, but we have already had that conversation with Bay County, and Bay County surely is aware that doesn't happen. They're not gonna leave us hanging. They're gonna be able to work with us to get this through.
So yeah, I do know, as after we had our last meeting, in addition to city manager meeting with Mr. Lightfoot, her and I were meeting and called Bob Micah so that we can get what that figure actually is. Like, what is the actual number?
Yes,
That
that's
is what it
what
costs.
we need that as well, yes.
So,
I just want to make sure we're moving in that
Yeah.
process direction, and
We are.
we have the full support of the ESTR program as far as I know, and I, I'm on the policy board, and Jessica Graham and Ryan Rossi and the people that this was their idea. I got the text in the middle of the meeting when we were doing the headwork project, like, don't do that.
And I know when we went to the legislative delegation, that was, I believe, our top priority that we mentioned to them, was that, hey, we would like funding for this. We mentioned 4, but that was our top priority, was wanting funding for that. And, mentioned the collaboration, because they did tell us you might only get two projects.
Is the vulnerability study ready? Is it finalized? Because it was in a draft form,
Yes.
so it is finalized now?
Finalized and submitted to DEP. Well,
Okay.
we have to submit the final, the findings to DEP so that we can get reimbursed for the expenditures. But yes, the study has been finalized.
And does it show that the plant doesn't need to be there based on,
Sorry.
does it show the progressive floodplains and stuff?
It does, yes.
We need all of those.
That's the winner right
Yeah,
there.
so we need all of those components too,
Mhm.
because meeting with Bay County and giving that information to Raftellus, and they have to have all of that information to move forward. So those are pieces of the puzzle that we need to make sure we have in place as well. So I know Bay County is all in. They had already talked to Representative Griffith as well. And I think it'll be a full collaboration. That's what I got from the meeting as well.
And then I know we tabled it, the last time we were talking about this. Are we gonna talk about city manager, the agenda item about the city manager's contract and what we were adding, not adding, or?
Yes, so we're going to bring that back first meeting in February.
Okay.
Because then that'll give us time everyone should have received your evaluation via email. Give us time to turn those back in. Assistant City Manager Hodges is going to, between now and then, is going to contact everyone as we did last year, set up meetings to talk
Are we
to city
gonna
manager.
discuss the multiplier on the pension? Like,
We're going
because-
to discuss everything.
So we wait till the first meeting in February to do all that?
Yeah, because
Okay.
there was mention of salary increase, but then there was no evaluation. So once we finish conducting the evaluation, then we'll have all of that for the first meeting in February. We'll discuss.
So if we do this evaluation, we're gonna have to do another evaluation in like July or August? Because when you read the contract, they want it
Yeah.
around the
It's a later
budget
date.
season.
Yeah,
And so
because everybody else is like in April and then for
mean,
last year. And
I think-
I still have questions about a couple
Yeah,
of things.
I think the challenge to doing it in July, August is that, and it depends on how you interpret, budget season. And I do understand that it's near the budget time period. But I think if we do it in July, August, you're going to have new commissioners that are on board.
Right.
That they may not, they just came on in April or May, and now we're asking them to give an evaluation after a month or two.
No, so I think, I've been thinking about that, and I think, this is my personal opinion, I think we should strive for that schedule, and when you do get a new commissioner, they don't give them a evaluation, they give them like what, you probably know this, the initial feedback. Give them initial feedback, you don't rate them on anything, and say, these are my expectations of you.
Right.
And then that next year, they can give their evaluation. You just have to know that every odd year, you may not have every single commissioner and mayor giving a feedback, an evaluation.
Got you. Now, I see that, and I guess do we want to do an evaluation based on a calendar year or a fiscal year? Because that's, because in my mind, I evaluate January to December versus September through October, which is, I think, why that's there, because it's falling into that fiscal aspect. Because you can evaluate now and say, okay, hey, this is what we're doing here. But, either way, we just have to create something that is consistent for the commissions moving forward.
Yeah.
That they will consistently have those evaluations. So I think we finished the process that we started here, in regards to finishing our evaluation that will be consistent with what we did last year. Is that we conducted it December, January last year, completed that we complete this process. And then we can further discuss, hey, when January, July, August comes around, do we conduct another evaluation as it leads into budget season? And how do you, continue to go from there? But, so that's my thought is that right now we have this in front of us. And so let's just finish what's in front of us first and then discuss what the evaluation is the next time after that. So.
Since we're talking about it, I would like to second what he's saying about the initial feedback. I think it would be more fair to the city manager and the rater, just because, just that way they have an entire year. Because imagine if you had a commissioner that came in with preconceived,
which everybody
thoughts.
does,
right?
Yeah.
That might be swayed one way or the other. It could be positive or negative, but we don't want it to be swayed. We want it to be accurate.
So to answer Commissioner Perno's question, we're going to try to discuss all of that at the first meeting in February. And then in the interim, conducting my complete the evaluation process. And then we'll have a report prior to that pre-commission meeting, have a report at the pre-commission meeting on Friday from Ms. Jennifer. And then that first meeting in February, have I just bring that tabled item back to fully discuss that with all of the parts in play. So we hadn't forgot about it, but we wanted to make sure.
I just know when we tabled it, we said that we tabled it the second meeting in January, but we were going to discuss it at the two pre-meetings. So I still, a couple of questions. I've kind of met with some people because I have questions about the multiplier and the
Well, go ahead and ask your questions.
The multiplier on the pension. It seems to be that the highest multiplier is for the police and fire people because they are they are life riskers. So their multiplier is higher than anybody else's. And then the city managers, where we want to put the city manager's multiplier is higher than that. So I didn't know if we need to bring up the multiplier for the risk takers or why would the city manager has a higher salary to begin with be a higher multiplier? Because futuristically it could stress the pension, and that, I mean, that was brought. I had to learn about it. I had to talk to people about it.
And I think, and of course, Ms. Jennifer can speak to this too. I think as we've been discussing it, the multiplier was increased the way it was because of the shorter time frame which a city manager might stay. So,
but the impact on the pension is you're talking about a higher salary. And you're talking about, you know what I mean, when you get to that 10-year level and it's vested. You're at a higher multiplier. You're walking away with more money for the rest of your life than somebody who risked their life every day while they were working for the city. So that's where my wheels are turning. So,
Well, a couple of things. You've got different pensions. What was being presented is what's typically done in different governments where there are different levels of multipliers. We can certainly ask the actuarial accountants to do a cost projection because you're talking one employee versus one person rather than a whole group. So actually the impact to the pension will not necessarily be as great as you think. There will be an impact. They can project that. They can do it based on
so we can get a number.
at least get an estimate. They'll always say it's not an exact number because they can't run an exact number until there's something done. But historically, anybody who is the executive director, their term in that position is limited and not usually to a full 30 or 20 or 30 years because it's dictated by a board or a group, and that can often change. On average, a city manager, an executive director may run anywhere from 3 to 7 years. So that's one of the reasons why many pensions will look at that position at a a higher multiplier because the longevity in that position is often less. Same as in what would be considered senior management. You'll sometimes see tiers. Panama City, I think, has 3 tiers with their multipliers. The other factor, too, with our first responders, you have to understand that, like at the state, I know that they actually max out at a different year or age group, too. Sometimes they play with when you reach vesting at a different level of age, different time with the organization. One other comment about the evaluation of the city manager, I will point out the contract is currently a January start contract. We did do the first level of evaluations during this exact same time. This is the second run. It doesn't really matter when you do it. And yes, we can always do an expectation with anybody coming in. I can set those meetings up. It's just to have some consistency.
So it is for the calendar year.
Well, her contract is a January. It was enacted January 14th and then was, I think her current is January 27th when it was signed. So that doesn't mean all city managers would be at that date. It's just that this particular city manager was, the contract was, the full contract was a January.
Yeah, another question.
2 more questions, because it's contingent on my, my thought process on evaluation.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know for sure until I ask the question, is this building still under a temporary certificate of occupancy?
Yes, it is.
When will we get a permanent certificate of occupancy?
When
And will it be incurring an expense to do so? Like if something needed to be done in order to get the
When they finish the punch list. Remember, when you give a CO to a person,
Yeah.
they say bye to you. If you hold a TCO over them with a punch list and they can't get the rest of their money, then they finish the list.
So we're holding back. So we are, there's a dollar amount. So
Oh, absolutely.
So, well, then the total figure for what this building costs won't be said and done until we get that completed CO. And we know, but we know exactly what that dollar amount's gonna be.
We do. We surely do.
And then
And there will be some LDs, liquidated damages.
And I guess in that regard, I did follow with the city manager, I think it was after our last commission meeting, about possibly having a workshop so that we could discuss the
yeah.
construction of this building, so that those questions
Just
could be
there's-
answered, and so that we could, because her and I sat down probably about a couple hours and went over some figures.
Right.
But to have a workshop so that the public would know, we would know what it costs to construct this building. So that is something that we've discussed.
And I am working on that as well.
Okay.
Remember, it's a moving target. We're dealing with FEMA. FEMA comes and, with Michael White, yes, we're going to pay some things. They come with me, no, we're not going to pay some things. So it's add, subtraction to many of things. It's a moving target for us.
Right.
Until we can get some final numbers, these numbers are temporary, particularly with FEMA in some areas, not all areas. And so I want to stress that a lot. And I don't think we did a very good job at the beginning of stressing, when we first brought this to the commission, that this was, and I know Kiki said it, this is not final, this is a projection, this is a moving target. And as we've gone into this rebuild, dealing with FEMA and insurance money, we've seen some things move. For instance, when Mr. White was here, FEMA promised that they would pay for temporary facilities. And they paid a first check, and then they came back and said, your insurance company will pay for that. So we may not pay for it. But now we've been fighting that for over a year. They've opened the case back up, which is $1.2 million. So you see how that is a moving target. They've already been paid for, but those are kinds of things when you're dealing with federal agencies, and you've had so many disasters, they are also trying to find ways to hold on to money as well.
Sure. Well, I know it was bid out and we selected the contractor, architect contractor, and the commission at that time put a not to exceed. So at the workshop, I'd like to know that we have the minutes from that meeting, what that amount was. I don't want to be vague, but I think it was 14 or something like that. But leading to my final question is that there, along the way, I know that not to exceed included, because we went with the architect design build, it was supposed to include everything, like furniture, fixtures, everything. And I know that the city did direct purchases along the way. And those direct purchases were so that the contractor didn't have to spend extra money, right? We got it cheaper than.
So, and my memory of that is that it was the construction of the building. I don't think we had anything in there in terms of, furniture, fixtures, because that would have been a separate item anyway.
I remember when we did the bid, when we went with awarding them the bid, it was
13.8 million.
and it was supposed to be everything in
Yeah,
place.
it was
And
everything.
we asked about chairs, desk, lamps, everything.
I don't think so. I'm not saying you're wrong, but
If you look
yeah.
at that's why I want to pull the minutes, because I know we talked about that specifically at that meeting.
Okay.
And it was, none of you guys were here.
Yeah, I was.
No, you guys were definitely not here, but I definitely know that there was a certain amount in terms of the construction. Now, remember before then, the commission also approved the engineer and architect, which was not included in this building. That was $1.4 million right there for that.
That's why we need to hash out what's going to this building and what wasn't, and where we sit based on that not to exceed.
Yeah, because I can see your point where, and I see yours too, that if it was, to construct was 14 million, is the design included in the construction cost? Do we look at that and include that? We're typically, like when we're dealing with our engineering and roads and things, we say, okay, this is the.
I think
the
if we
engineering
pull the old
cost.
meetings, we'll know what we asked for, and then when we do the workshop, we'll see what we got.
So yeah,
And it should be in the contract too, right?
Well, it should be in the contract, but also you guys did go back and approve the landscaping.
I remember that.
And that, I think that was probably
that
about
was like-
$600,000 or
was the-
$400,000. Awnings, the walkway,
I remember
all
that.
of those things there.
That was
So
the-
you would
one of the
include
change
it,
orders.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll hash it out in a workshop, and that way, like I said, it'll all be out there. It need to be a workshop, like I said, specifically just to discuss that. So I guess my question to you all in regards to the workshop, do we want to let our next pre-commission meeting be that workshop? How close, I know you and Kiki started working on pulling those numbers together.
Yeah. So she's out this week. She pulled me some together. Some of it I don't have. So that's what I've been working on. Can I just give you
Yeah,
an
just
update? And yeah, I don't
yeah.
want to make a.
Next
meeting.
week, let's look at the update, just give us an update, and then possibly our next pre-commission meeting would just be that workshop. We could gloss over our agenda for sure, but because some of this is just gonna be a second reading, right?
Yeah.
And so it could be that workshop, or if necessary, just an additional day to have a workshop. Okay. All right. Awesome. That's all yours stuff, Mr. Prano? Awesome. All right. Have a great day. See you later. Don't forget, 10 o'clock, if you can, Bay House is having a grand opening with Ark of the Bay. And then also coming back at 12 for the unveiling of the renaming of the name of the chamber.